without the humorous intro.
I know.
You know? All right, here we go. Joe Burrow, obviously, number 3. Joe, it's all on you now. Jamar's back. T. Higgins is back. Mike Gesicki is back. Looks like you're probably going to get Trey Hendrickson back. This is the team you went to bat for. This is the team you said had to be back. Team that didn't even make the playoffs last year, all right? So you have got to deliver because you put it on the line to bring all these guys back, to make your team lopsided, all offense, maybe a good defense, hopefully an average defense, if not better. So you got to get it done. First of all, a lot of the guys that we all put you on the same tier as, Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, they've all got hardware. All of them have at least one MVP, and you have only 2 Pro Bowls. No MVPs, no all first team All Pro, and not even a Super Bowl win, obviously. And here's what you got to do, Joe. You got to avoid the slow start. I don't know what in the world it is, but you in weeks 1 and 2, you and your team are terrible. You're 1-9 in weeks 1 and 2 over the 5 years of your career. And you've been 0-2 in 4 of those years. Last year, you lost to the hapless, horrible, so truth hurts, Wilds, horrible New England Patriots. And if you hadn't lost that game, you'd have probably been in the playoffs. Yep. You would have. And so whatever you have to do in offseason, training camp, whatever, get it done, avoid the slow start, and get your team in the playoffs and actually got to make a run, too.
All right. First off, I don't understand how this, we can be putting Joe Burrow on the bud list at this point of the off season. Like I don't even know, honestly. But we'll run with it. I mean, putting Joe Burrow under duress for this is kind of absurd. And trying to isolate an individual game like versus the Patriots or something when there was many games that Joe Burrow absolutely balled out and did every single thing he could to put the Bengals in a position to win, only for the Bengals team to fail him, whether defense, field goal kicking, whatever it may be. So to lump that all on Joe Burrow is pretty absurd, quite frankly. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, and we have endless examples of players playing poorly, objectively and subjectively and statistically bad, great players, and still winning the game, whether it's Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, whatever it may be. And so, it's just kind of absurd from my viewpoint, but it's actually kind of perfect that he put Joe Burrow up here for this list, because when I actually, just prior to making this video, like literally right now, I was, online or whatever, looking around, and it was showing the draft class, and it was showing Joe Burrow, Tua, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts. I'm not sure if anyone else was in there or not. And someone in the comment section was like, oh, Josh, crazy how Jalen Hurts, was drafted where he was, and yet he's already taken his team to 2 Super Bowls. And then someone said, oh, crazy, what happens when you have, a super team or whatever. And my answer to that is always like, it's one thing if Jalen Hurts was drafted to this like special team, this great team, and they got Jalen Hurts like at the bottom, like at the back of the draft, essentially kind of almost like a similar to like a Brock Purdy type situation, then I would have more sympathy to that idea. But the reality is, one, and the truth is like no one was calling it a super team until they won the Super Bowl, number one. And number two, they built that team. And that's what I always say to Bengals fans, Ravens fans, Bills fans, like anyone who's like, our quarterback's better, and that Jalen Hurts was just lucky enough to be on a better team. And it's like, so then build a better team. That will always be my comeback. Build a better team. Build a more complete team. You could have hired Fangio. You could have made a big play to get Fangio and fix your defense. But the Eagles did it. So that's the thing. It's not like the Eagles just did easy or obvious decisions. Where it's like, oh, yeah, well, the Eagles had, this draft pick that was practically given to them or something. Like, they didn't have this type of situation. Or if it really was kind of like a non-salary cap league and it was just like, well, they were able to just to pay for all these players. Like, no. They have to build their team just like everyone else does. So it's just, that's why for me, for who's under duress, it's the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. It's not Joe Burrow. And to say like, oh, he doesn't have any hardware. First off, Joe Burrow definitely could have won an MVP. Like when you're talking about these voting awards, like Josh Allen has not gone up in stature to me, whether he wins the MVP or not. And I've been very consistent about that. Because even before he officially got the MVP, I was like, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter to me. People are like, oh, funny how you say that now that you think Lamar Jackson's going to get the MVP. And I was like, no, it doesn't matter to me. Like, when you're just talking about an award that random people are voting on, like Brew used to have an MVP. I don't know if he still does, but could vote for an MVP for the NBA. And it's like, so, you know, Brew's the arbiter, you know, of who's the MVP. Like, no, there's plenty of guys who are not even watching all these games. You had people like just recently with the Academy Awards on the more recent side come out and be like, we didn't even watch some of these movies that have been nominated. And it's just kind of like, oh, you know, exactly. Your opinion means nothing to me. So any awards that you can get voted for, it just doesn't mean anything to me. So it's just, so to say to him that he doesn't have the hardware, it's kind of absurd. And I can make the argument that Joe Burrow has played on worse teams, albeit has, you know, some better weapons at times, but collectively worse teams than some of these other, you know, other quarterbacks. And I'm not even going to name names right now, and yet has actually gotten them to a Super Bowl. So to me, like, that could be an accomplishment in and itself. And you know, that's why awards like that mean nothing to me. Like, Josh Allen has not been now solidified because he got an MVP. And I don't see Lamar Jackson as being a better quarterback because he has 2 MVPs. I see those as just kind of, you know, accomplishments in their own right, but not kind of like hardware, as Brew put it. I just don't see it that way, honestly. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of talk about the Bengals, and you talk about under duress. The only reason why anyone's even remotely talking about the Cincinnati Bengals and what they should be able to accomplish, or the idea that they have been underperforming even, is all because of Joe Burrow. Are we having these conversations about Miami Dolphins? Are we having these conversations about the Jacksonville Jaguars? We're not even having these conversations about the Houston Texans. But that just shows you what Joe Burrow has been able to do. How he's been able to elevate this franchise from nothing to a massive, massive, massive something. That means something. That means something. And so, just like how in a game, a quarterback can only do so much, me and Travis O'Shea and JCD Slice and a bunch of other people had this conversation months ago. This idea of like when you have a quarterback who's balling and playing so well, but they're still ultimately still probably going to miss a throw or have a bad throw. And I remember saying, you know, it's interesting, like how do we figure out when we should criticize a quarterback for making a bad throw or missing a read or, you know, whatever it is. And then we have someone like a Dak Prescott who we're kind of like, oh my God, he messed up here, he messed up here, messed up here. Like, why don't we do that for sometimes some of these other great quarterbacks? And it's like, because some of these other great quarterbacks are doing so many great things so regularly. It's like you can only expect them to do so much at any given moment. And to me, that's where Joe Burrow is. The dude has done so much. What else do you want him to be able to do? You can say, oh, slow starts and this and that. And like, I get it. One of his slow starts was because I think he had like his appendix removed, or he had mono. I don't even remember, but he had some sort of surgery. Like, he has unfortunately had some injury history. Like, that is an unfortunate truth. But when he's healthy, he balls. And, you know, listen, has he cost his team some games? Sure. So has Mahomes. So has Josh Allen. So has Jalen Hurts. So has every quarterback ever, you know, to ever play football. But for the without a shadow of doubt, Joe Burrow is a massive net positive for this team. And so to put the weight constantly on his shoulders to be able to try to find ways to win these games, I just, you know, I just don't see it. And again, like I always kind of say in these types of conversations, if he was maybe up for debate in terms of like being the GOAT, like if he already had a couple Super Bowls and we were now like, you know, essentially what we're doing with Patrick Mahomes, then yeah, that level of scrutiny makes so much more sense to me, because you're like, we're trying to figure out, like, are you literally the greatest quarterback of all time? Like, if that is hardware, that is the crown of all crowns. You know, but we're not having that conversation about Joe Burrow. So to be like, well, if you really are that great, you would lead this team to a Super Bowl and win. And it's like, he is really that great, but it still also does take a team, just like it did for Mahomes, just like it did for Brady, just like it will take for Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and just like it did take for Jalen Hurts, who then was able to go to 2 Super Bowls and obviously win one and the Super Bowl MVP. That could be Joe Burrow's story, and the only reason why it's not is not because of Joe Burrow. But you could always make the argument that he could play better in some of these bigger games. Well, with all that said, like potentially in the Super Bowl. So it's not always the easiest, most straightforward discussion. But if you're putting him under duress, you're having the wrong conversation. And I know sometimes it's motivational. Will motivate other people within that franchise. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow being under duress? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. Excuse me. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be a part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.